Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're taking a look at the world of archives. You know those collections of documents, photographs, all that cool historical stuff? We've got some fascinating material here, all about how archivists make these collections available for research.
Yeah, it's actually a lot more complicated than people might think.
Right, I was surprised. So basically, our mission today is to figure out how they make these historical treasures accessible. But of course, we got to keep in mind all the legal stuff and the whole preservation aspect too, right?
Absolutely. It's a real balancing act.
Okay, so first things first. Why is access to all this archival material such a big deal?
Well, the International Council on Archives, they call it the ICA, they're really big on the public's right to access, especially when it comes to the archives of public institutions.
Makes sense. Transparency and all that, right?
Exactly. It's all about keeping citizens informed.
Right, because if this stuff helps us understand our past, it can also inform our present and future, I guess.
Exactly. But it's not just a free-for-all. There are rules and regulations, to make sure these often really fragile documents are preserved for the long haul.
So it's a balancing act between access and preservation. I bet there are all kinds of different approaches to managing that.
There are. And a big one is the legal framework. Think of it like a system with multiple layers, with national and international laws setting the foundation.
Okay, so big picture stuff. Then what?
Then you've got each institution's specific access policies.
So each archive has its own rule book.
Yep, pretty much. These policies lay out the guidelines for researchers. What are the opening hours? Can you take pictures? Can you publish excerpts? All that stuff.
Makes sense. I'm guessing those policies would cover things like restrictions on sensitive materials too, right? Like personal letters or classified documents?
Oh, absolutely. Those are crucial, especially when you're dealing with things that contain personal information or might be related to national security.
Right. Got to balance that need for transparency with the need to protect certain information. Okay, well, I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, which is copyright law.
Oh, yeah. That one's a bit of a beast.
It really is. But we got to understand the basics if we're going to talk about archives.
Agreed. So copyright protects original works of authorship that have been recorded in a tangible form.
So like books, photos, letters, diaries, all that.
All of that.
And this protection lasts for what?
In most cases, it's the lifetime of the author plus 70 years.
Wow. 70 years, that's a long time. So how does this whole copyright thing actually affect researchers and archivists?
Well, it can put limits on how researchers can use and share archival material. Let's say you find an amazing letter in the archives, and you want to quote from it in a book you're writing. If that letter is still under copyright,
You're stuck.
well, you need to get permission from the copyright holder.
Which could be?
Could be the author's heirs or the institution that owns the material. It can get complicated.
So you could find something amazing, but not be able to share it widely. Ugh, what a bummer.
Yeah, it's something researchers definitely need to keep in mind. Understanding copyright law is really important.
Okay, so let's say you found an archive. You figured out all the legal stuff. You're ready to go. How do you actually find what you're looking for in this mountain of historical documents?
That's where we get into intellectual access. It's all about making information about the archive and its collections easy to find and understand.
So more than just opening the doors, you need a map to navigate the treasures inside.
Exactly. You said it.
What kind of tools do they use for that?
Well, you've got the basics, good signage, easy-to-use websites, and those brochures that give you an overview. But the real heroes are something called finding aids.
Finding aids.
Yeah, they're like the keys to the kingdom. The inventories, catalogs, indexes,
Yeah.
basically anything that helps you pinpoint specific documents within a collection.
Sounds like finding aids are a researcher's best friend.
You got it. Can you imagine digging through boxes and boxes of unlabeled documents, trying to find one specific letter or report?
Ugh, no thanks.
Here-
Sounds like a nightmare.
Finding aids prevent that nightmare. They save so much time and frustration. And get this, they're becoming even more awesome with the move towards putting them online.
Online finding aids, so you don't even have to travel to the archive to start your research anymore.
Exactly.
Whoop.
You can browse the collections from anywhere in the world.
That's pretty cool. It makes these materials so much more accessible.
It really does. It's a huge step forward.
Okay, so we've got legal frameworks and finding aids, two key ways to access archives. But I have a feeling there's more to this story. It can't be as simple as just finding the right box of old papers, right?
You are so right. There's way more to it than that. In fact, what's even more fascinating is What's even more fascinating is that true access, well, it isn't just about finding the right document.
It's got to be more about understanding what it all means.
Yeah, you need to get the whole story, not just a piece of it.
Right, like reading the whole book, not just one sentence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Archivists can help researchers figure out how it all fits together.
So they're kind of like guides then.
In a way, yeah. They can shed light on how a collection came to be, how all the different documents are connected, and how it all ties into the bigger picture of history.
So it's not just handing over a bunch of papers, it's more about helping people navigate and make sense of it all.
Exactly. Let's say you're looking into a local politician from way back, early 1900s, and you find a bunch of his letters.
Okay, I'm following.
Without knowing the context, who he was writing to, what was going on politically at the time, all that those letters are just words on paper.
But with the help of an archivist.
Exactly. Those letters could open up a whole new understanding of local history. You might find stuff about power struggles, political strategies, even scandals.
So archivists are like history detectives, in a way.
Kind of, yeah. There's always piecing together clues and uncovering hidden stories. It's a really interesting field that combines historical knowledge, meticulous organization, and a real passion for the past.
It does sound fascinating. And speaking of the past, how do they decide what to preserve in the first place? I mean, archives are supposed to be for the public, right?
That's such an important question. It's actually really complicated. There are a lot of different factors that come into play.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, resources are always limited. How big the archive is, how many staff they have, what kind of budget they're working with, that all affects what they can realistically take on.
Right, I guess you can't just save everything.
Nope. And then there are the goals of the institution itself. What areas are they focused on? Are they trying to fill in any gaps in the historical record? Those kinds of questions guide their choices.
So there's a lot of responsibility involved in deciding what stories get saved for the future.
Absolutely. Archivists have a big impact on how we understand the past. Their decisions about what to preserve, what to focus on, even just how they organize things, it all shapes the way we interpret history.
So having a diverse group of archivists with different backgrounds and expertise, that's really important.
I couldn't agree more. We need different perspectives to make sure that archival collections reflect the full range of human experiences.
Okay, so we've talked about the legal side of things, the tools they use to make archives accessible, and the big responsibility they have in choosing what to preserve. It's been a really insightful conversation.
It has. And it all comes back to this basic idea. Access to the past is fundamental. I mean, that's how we learn and grow as a society.
Right. We can't understand where we are without understanding where we came from.
Exactly. Archives aren't just for academics or historians, they're for everyone.
So, listeners, get out there and explore the archives in your own communities. You might be surprised at what you find.
It's like a treasure hunt through history. You never know what amazing discoveries are waiting to be made.
I love that. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of archives. I hope everyone listening has gained a new appreciation for these incredible institutions.
You know what I think is interesting?
What's that?
People have this idea of archives as being kind of intimidating.
Yeah, like stuffy old buildings filled with, dusty documents.
Exactly. And only serious scholars are allowed in.
Right. But really, archives are for everyone.
Absolutely. One of the things that's been so cool about this deep dive is realizing how many different stories these materials can tell.
It's not just about, the big historical events. It's about the lives of everyday people, too.
Right. You can find personal letters, diaries, old photographs.
But even home movies. It's like a window into someone's life.
It really is. Makes you wonder what people will find about us 100 years from now.
I know, right? Like, what traces of our lives are we leaving behind?
It's a fascinating thought. What will they learn about our hopes and dreams, our struggles?
And how will archivists today shape the way those stories are told? It's a lot of responsibility.
It is. So to everyone listening, we really encourage you to explore the archives in your own communities.
Yeah, you don't have to be a historian or anything.
Just be curious about the past.
And remember, archives are always changing.
There's new stuff being added all the time, so there are always new discoveries waiting to happen.
That's what makes it so exciting. It's like a never-ending treasure hunt.
Exactly. You could be the one to find the next hidden gem.
So, on that note, this wraps up our deep dive into the world of archives.
I hope you all enjoyed it.
Me too. It's been a real eye-opener.
Archives are so important, not just for understanding the past, but also for shaping the future.
By keeping these materials accessible, we make sure those stories from the past can keep informing and inspiring us.
And who knows, maybe even change the way we think about the world.
Okay, everyone, until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep